People who were adopted when they were old enough to remember it. How long did it take for your adopted family to feel like your family? I was 6, my sister 11. She took to them right away, but it took me about 6 months. This is abnormally long, but because they were the 4th family to try and adopt us, I thought I was going back into foster care, so I had an irrational hatred of them for several months. Now 14 years later, I am very glad they adopted my sister and I. Always felt a part of the family, but even more so when my nan happily patted my stomach and exclaimed, "You're getting the family belly. I miss you, Nan." Not sure if I am correct about this, but I have an adopted sister. Total pain in my butt growing up. She was between 10 to 12 when my parents adopted her. I had 2 other sisters, so another one just seemed like a small issue, to be honest. Well, after the adoption was finalized, she became a demon. Since I was the oldest, I was in charge of trying to get her to learn multiplication. She would just scream and scream. I finally gave up at some point and my parents got her into an after-school program to help her. The house just felt tense and full of anger for about 2 years. She's getting married in 2 weeks. Recently she thanked me for being patient with me. I'm a bridesmaid. I told her that all little sisters must first be a pain in the butt in order to ever be considered sisters. This one got me. Your family sounds lovely. I was 4 when I was adopted and it took a couple of months. My elder brothers, also adopted, used to give me extra sweets and food from their plates. It's something I had never experienced before. It was incredible. I had never experienced that sort of love from anyone before. Ugh, this is the sweetest. I was about 9 years old when I was adopted. My sisters and my brother came with. At the time, I didn't realize just how crazy my new parents were for deciding to adopt all 4 of us at once. Now that I'm older, I can safely say that we've given both of them absolute heck all throughout our teenage years. Honestly, not being separated from my siblings made the transition kind of seamless. We'd been in the foster care system for only about 8 months and were more or less oblivious to what was going on. Then we were introduced to some people who wanted to be our new parents. One week we were visiting these 2 nice people. The next we were living with them and visiting all our new relatives. I know that it might sound kind of bland, but there was maybe only a period of a couple weeks where I had to get comfortable with thinking of these strangers as family. Maybe it helped that I was a relatively dumb kid, or maybe my new family being so closely knit with each other helped. Heck, my new grandparents lived next door to us until we moved to a bigger house. I'm so happy they adopted all of you. It can't have been easy, but siblings being split up makes me so sad. I can't imagine being split up from my brothers. About a week in when they told me I didn't have to ask permission every time I wanted food. I was like, well, this is family. About 2 months. That's when I asked if I could call her mum. She cried and I felt bad because I didn't know happy tears were a thing when I was 5. This whole comment section is reminding me of this Gabriel Iglesias story. Gabriel speaking to his girlfriend's son. So, have you ever wanted to meet your real dad and talk to him? Son, but Gabriel, you are my real dad. He's such a funny guy, but that almost made me cry. I was adopted at age 9 and it took a little time. I got to watch movies with my new parents for the first time and I felt uncomfortable calling them mom or dad for ages. It took almost 20 years until I started saying dad and it still feels a little weird calling him that. But don't get me wrong. He's my dad and I love him. My aunt and uncle adopted me when I was 3 years old. What followed was years of emotional breakdowns, therapy, and social anxiety. For the longest time it never felt like I ever had or deserved a family. I eventually came to terms with me just in another living space. I did learn to love the family I was adopted into though. Around the time I was transferring colleges out of the state, my family was genuinely sad to see me leave and it kinda just hit me that these people actually love me. My late adoption caused long-term self-esteem issues, and this was the first time in my life I knew people could love and care about me. Everything my family did to accommodate into our new home. Therapy, letting me visit my birth parents, putting my last name on the mailbox, and more was done out of complete love. I'm 22 now and I'm going to be moving out in 2 months. I am very bad at expressing gratitude and I don't like hugging or talking to people, but I'm doing literally all I can to try to convey that I love them. I've been looking bad at these last 19 years now and I feel horrible that I didn't believe they cared about me. I don't think they believe me when I tell them I love them. This is emotionally tolling on me, but I'm gonna keep trying until I know they know. You could tell them this. My best friend was adopted. Not sure how accurate my response is since it's second-hand information, but she always struggled to fit into her family. Her parents and 2 sisters are blonde with soft features, and she's Eastern European with pitch black hair, fair skin and a sharp face. Even though she was adopted young, her 2 sisters are much closer with each other. She spoke frequently about feeling left out and different. Her family are very practical, sort of the earth people, while she's quite eccentric. I remember at a sleepover, she pointed at a beautiful family portrait over the fireplace. She said that nobody realizes she remembers having that portrait taken, even though she's 3 or 4 in the photo. She remembers they took 2 photos, one with and one without, so they could use the second one just in case the adoption didn't go through. When we were teenagers, she put an enormous amount of effort into finding her birth mother, and eventually did. I don't know what happened during the meeting, but I know it wasn't what she was expecting. I asked if they were going to meet again, and she said no. She looked crushed, and never mentioned finding her biological relatives again. Oh my god, how terrible about the picture and how sad it didn't work out. My best friend's husband tried for a year to find his biological family and finally found some cousins who gave him his bio mom's phone number. He was so excited, he called her and she promptly told him never to call again. I was adopted at 11 and technically this happened just before. It's important to note I have trouble showing affection. The day I realized I was really wanted was when my adoptive dad got on a plane with me and flew over 2 states so I could confront my bio dad. I wanted answers. In the end, I asked him to give up parental rights as I could clearly see I had found a better family. When you have one dad standing back but still close enough to protect you showing love and another slumped, half drunk on a picnic table, it's clear what the best option is. After that I felt more relaxed as I knew I couldn't be sent back to my bio dad. He was holding out his rights to stop the adoption. I didn't become affectionate per se, but I did start being more comfortable and sharing my dreams in life, which often resulted in my dad in the backyard doing dumb stuff with me like learning hula hoop tricks because I wanted to join the circus. So I guess the answer is from the start once I was adopted. I love that your dad supported you in your circus joining dreams. My wife and I adopted in November last year. They moved into our home in April 2018 and we fostered them until the court finished the adoption paperwork. It was a sibling group of 4, ages 7, 5, 3 and 1. The 3 oldest absolutely remember life before adoption. They were all in foster care for 2 years, minus the youngest obviously. Over the last year I've learned that kids crave family. While my children were very wary of my wife and me, they absolutely wanted to feel like a family. It created this very clear push and pull where they would want to cuddle, read together, and do family outings, but would have these seemingly random tantrums when they felt like we were too close. They craved family, but they were scared of it too because they had learned to guard themselves from closeness. I can't speak for my kids as to exactly when they felt like we were a family. However, there have been a few moments when we've clearly grown together. The first was when the oldest had a 4-hour tantrum, destroying his room. This was after a week straight of daily tantrums. I was in there with him, sitting on his bare bed, and he was hiding underneath his mattress in the corner. I told him, "Michael, you can't make me not love you. I'm not mad about your room. That being said, I'm going to sit here until you decide to clean it." He had been waiting all week for me to explode in anger, and this was the absolute last thing he expected. 20 minutes later he started to clean. Another sea change for our family was when our black lab, Grim, got cancer in December and had to be put down. It was completely unexpected and incredibly rough for us all because Grim had been our rock through everything. He was a quiet, calming presence in the middle of every tantrum. He was always ready to love everyone no matter what they did. That unconditional love was something we had talked about a lot as a family. When he died, the kids got to see grief modeled for them for the first time in a positive way. As we explained his cancer, they kept commenting on how I or my wife were crying. They almost seemed confused by it, as all they had known to express their sadness until that point was rage. Since then, whenever they're feeling sad or start crying and we ask them why, they say, "I'm sad about Grim." Even though it might not always be the truth, we all know the code and accept it. They're sad, may not even know what about, but remember the first time they learned that sadness was okay. All in all, I think that the experience of family isn't something that you can point to a definite beginning or end. It's something that either grows or dies over time. You definitely know when you have it, but it can and will slip away without careful investment. It's more than just a legal standing the court gave me in November. It's a lifestyle, a commitment, a blessing, and a treasure. If you have it, hold on to it. If you don't, then start to build it today. I'm still building mine. Thank you for having such a beautiful response to Michael's hurt. So many parents would have beaten him or gotten mad. I don't know many who could be so kind. I'm a psych student and I can't tell you how many assignments I've written about how even spanking can cause PTSD. So seeing parents who understand kindness means so much to me. I was adopted at 3 months from Korea into an Italian family. Always was told I was adopted. Even though that might have been obvious, when you're a baby toddler little kid you don't understand. I've never felt less loved, less of a family member, etc. First question PPL ask is, do you wonder about where your mom is? No, she's at work or at home. My biological mother is probably somewhere in Korea. I don't speak Korean and really don't embrace the culture. I have zero desire to go there or seek out my biological mother, seeing as I don't speak the language, have no idea if she's alive, and wouldn't want to hurt my family. Just my personal belief opinion. I don't know if this counts as an adoption story. Partial adoption story, I guess. Sorry if there are some mistakes. I am from Austria, so English isn't my mother's tongue. So, this is kind of a long story. I never had a great relationship with my 5 years older sister. Almost all memories I have including her in any way are bad ones. Her shouting at me, hitting me, etc. My parents got her when they were way too young and were even more stressed when they got my 2 younger siblings, 10 and 13 years younger than me, so they always only watched and never said anything. We always had a sneaking suspicion that my older sister abuses drugs, and last year in summer, I was 17, she 20, we found our suspicion to be true and everything went downhill after that. In summer she was rarely home. It felt like heaven. But soon after school started in September she started coming back home as it got cold outside, and she blasted her music 24/7. Smoked weed all the time. That smell grosses me out so much. I could puke. And always had really freaking scary drug people over. This wouldn't be a problem for me if our rooms weren't right next to each other and if I wasn't such a light sleeper. But because of those things I got like 2 hours of sleep maximum every night. I was close to a mental breakdown because of school, my last year before university, and no sleep, my younger siblings keeping me awake at day and her keeping me awake at night. This is where my aunt, a real hero even without cape, had me move in with her. She is a single mum, my patron and her son, 14 at the time, and I always were as close as siblings. They were both extremely considerate. In Austria we have to write a scientific paper with about 30,000 to 60,000 words in the last year of school, and I, therefore, needed a lit of quiet. Her dogs accepted me in the pack from day 2 and I felt at home after a week or so. I now live back at my parents' house again since my older sister finally moved out half a year ago. AMD will start university in October. TL. DR. My son of an aunt took me in with her and her son for about 2/3 of a year after my drug abusing sister almost induced a mental breakdown due to verbal abuse and sleep deprivation. I wasn't officially adopted. I kind of adopted him. But I spent every summer with my uncle since I was 5. Then I lived with him for a short bit, and then as a teen he became my legal guardian and I lived with him through high school. He got me because I was a troubled kid teen, and when I was 19 I was sitting in jail and he just kept on showing up to see me, and not to harass interrogate me. He used to harass me in letters, or anything, just to check on me and entertain me, and I kind of thought, man, I can't shake this guy. I've called him dad since around that time. My cousins are my siblings to me too, that came before I figured out who my dad was. I have a little brother who was fully adopted by him too. He just kind of tripped and fell into our family and became a part of us. From my perspective, it became pretty normal pretty quickly to have him around for family stuff. That's really sweet. I bet if you offered to do an adult adoption he'd love it. Not sure if this fully counts, but my stepfather adopted me when I was 11. My mom and biological dad got divorced when I was 3 months old. Mom remarried to my stepdad when I was 4, so he had been in my life almost from the beginning. To me, my stepdad always felt like my family more than my bio dad, just due to the fact that he was around more and put in effort to really parent me. My bio dad just wasn't ready to be a father and couldn't handle the responsibility it took to parent me when he got to see me every other weekend. And even as a child I could sense that from him. Family is and always will be the people that are there through thick and thin and make a conscious effort to be a part of my life. My stepdad and I are really close, and I never felt like there was an adjustment period. I'm so lucky I have two parents that love me and raised me in the best possible circumstances they could. I stopped speaking to my biological father after the adoption process went through. He always spoke poorly of my mother, who is a superhuman of a person, and defied all odds against her. Periodically got into fights, drank excessively, smoked, neglected to feed me to the point where my mom would cook and pack meals to send with me when I'd go to his house for the weekend, etc. It's hard to feel connected to a person that will treat you like that just because they are biologically related to you. On the other hand, my stepdad supported my mother and myself through everything that we went through. He taught me how to be confident, work hard for the things you want, stand up for myself, and be kind to people even if they aren't kind to you. We watched sports together, taught me how to change a tire, bought me my first drink at 21 and went out to the club with me. He's one of the kindest and most generous people I know. Glad your stepfather was there for you. I'm not sure if this counts, but my dad left when I was about 1 year old. Even during that year he was barely ever around. My mom has taken great care of me, and still does. I am 15. When I was younger it was really hard for my 3-year-old brain to understand why I didn't have a dad like all my other's friends. I was pretty upset about it as I got older and my mom and grandparents started to realize it. My granddad really stepped up and started to hang out with me and just be with me more in general. We still spend a lot of time together because he has been the only man in my life and he means the world to me. I know this probably doesn't count as an adoption story, but I felt like I should share it. Your granddad sounds like an amazing person. Not until I was 18. I met them when I was 14. The summer going into my freshman year of college. It felt like a choice they made and not an obligation to the state. I was adopted really late, like 20, and I felt like I was theirs from day one. They felt it too. I didn't move in straight away. In fact, I was living elsewhere and would go to them on weekends only for about 6 MTS before I fully moved in. I will never forget how much they loved me and I thought I was so special. They were older white Jewish Americans and I was a small African kid from Kenya. But it worked out perfectly and they are more than my parents. They are really like incarnations of God to me. I am what I am mainly because of them. I am so privileged. In loving me, they taught me how to love, but I always felt super special from day one. Fast forward 5 years and I met my husband, and guess what? They love him the exact same way and have basically adopted him as well. My mom told me a month ago, "Em is our favorite person." And I was like, "What about me? I thought I was your favorite person." And she was like, "You are our daughter, you're not our favorite person, LMAO." I love her so much. I wasn't adopted, but left my mother to live with my grandmother and her husband when I was 8. I'm 19 now and the whole time I accepted them as my guardians, but I never thought of them as my parents. I was always closer with my grandmother. Maybe it was just because we were related by blood, but when I was 16 or so my grandpa, as I refer to him now, was diagnosed with a stomach disorder that made him unable to do his job as a trucker. We get some benefits, but life was hard from then on. Sometimes losing cable and internet because we couldn't afford it. Food in the house being short most of the time, but we still got by nonetheless. Now, we shouldn't have been as rough as we were, but my grandmother was managing our money bills as she had been working jobs as a bartender. And as it turns out, she was actually horribly mismanaging it. She had been spending money on weed, clothes, random stuff, etc. that should have been going towards bills. By the time I graduated high school we had lost internet and cable again, and by the end of the summer our car got repoed. It was then that I discovered that bikers at her jobs had been getting her back into M-Coke, something that wasn't a problem since before I was even around, and that she was cheating on my grandfather, which he still doesn't know I know about, and planning to divorce him. By the beginning of November she had left for Georgia to stay with her ex-husband, and I've been here with my grandpa ever since. I had always thought that since my grandma's my grandma by blood, if anyone were going to end up leaving it'd be my grandpa, but now ever since she left my relationship with him has never been better. I don't have my license and we still don't have a car, so I often end up skating down to the nearest store to get him what he needs if he's not feeling well enough to make the trip on his own, do the heavy lifting around the house, etc. It was hard assuming the position as an adult so suddenly, but I feel like the moment she left was when I finally realized that we don't get to pick who supports us. We just get what we get and make do with it. Now, I'm proud to call that man my grandfather and I've learned a lot from him. I've learned to trust someone as a parental figure again finally, and it feels a lot better than being dead set on thinking I'll be fine on my own for the rest of my life. Thank you, Grandpa. I love you. TL. DR. As soon as he and my mom were married he treated me and my brother as his own. I was the product of a Valentine's night love to a person we'll call Guy. Mom and Guy loved each other, but there was some stuff in the background that made it hard for them to be together. To this day I still don't know it. 42 years and won't pry. Fast forward 3-4 years she meets another man. Butthole. They married and had my 1/2 brother, bro. We all lived as a family for about a year on the East Coast. Then Butthole decided to move the family out west where his narcissistic and controlling ways could totally take her over and become an abusive person. I remember nights of yelling and bruises or bumps on her head made by an iron. Being on the West Coast I had no contact knowledge of Guy. After about a year she left Butthole with me and bro to a battered women's shelter. I have vague images of it. Nights we weren't there I remember being in crap motels with bug bites just trying to stay away from him. Fast forward a few years my mom is working at Kmart and a co-worker introduces her father to my mom. We'll call him King. Mom and King hit it off well and he is a nice guy. I'm about 6-7 at the time. They get married after about 6 months. I don't remember this, but soon after Butthole shows up and kidnaps bro and I as a way to use us as leverage to get her back. FBI is involved. After a week or so I get back home and King and Mom introduce me to Guy, telling me his is my biological father and he is handing over all parental rights so that King can adopt me and they can do legal stuff, so he will be my protector. Adopt me. King becomes my stepdad, but all I know him as his dad. He is the provider, the father, the leader, the masculine role model in my life. I didn't understand any of it. As a little kid I was just thinking as my toys and cartoons don't change I'm on board. I spend a week with Guy, never saw him again. Adoption is finalized and King is my dad. To this day I still call him dad, and always will. P.S. Butthole died of AIDS in the early 90s. Guy died of colon cancer in 2016. Part of his last wishes was for his 2 children to find their lost brother somewhere on the west. They found me and we are building bonds. They tell me he was such a simple man he thought that when he handed over rights he was not to be in contact, and he regretting not understanding more as he couldn't read. This makes my heart so sad that he thought he couldn't have contact and his dying wish was for his other children to reunite with you. My parents both remarried when I was 9 and so I have extensive step families. I don't know if this is the same. I considered them my family pretty quickly afterwards, although I recently found out that my stepdad's mother doesn't consider me her grandchild. 22 years later. My mill doesn't consider my 2 kids from a marriage previous to her son her grandkids, but she's a T, so they don't like her anyway. I am adopted through family. My bio parents were young, drug addicted high school dropouts. My grandmother took responsibility for me around 6 meters old. When I was 2-3, she was diagnosed with cancer and died when I was 4. My bio aunt took me and made it legal. Because I had lived with my grandmother, she was my authority figure. When she got sick, my aunt took care of us both. She loved her mother and they were very close, but I put a strain on their relationship. My grandmother was dying and my aunt had to become the authority figure, which caused a lot of psychological issues for me, and therapy for all of us ensued. My aunt always wanted to be free and live her own life. I was not in her plans, but she didn't know what else to do. But she adopted me. I think she tried to love me, but she is a narcissist. I was a burden. She didn't outright say it, but I was to blame for her life going wrong. She never married. Growing up, she left me alone a lot, was tired when she came home from work and didn't have much to do with me at home, went on vacations with friends, sent me to stay with family friends. She alienated most of our family, so I was never close to anyone. I think she loved me sometimes, but when it was convenient or for show. I love her, but it's like Stockholm Syndrome. I love her because she kept me alive. There are people who have been beaten and starved. I should be grateful. I'm in my 40s now and deal with depression. I have a very loving and understanding husband and an amazing daughter that I probably do too much for. I put myself on the back burner and kill myself to make sure everyone else's needs are met, so that they never have to feel like I did growing up. I still struggle with feeling like a burden to everyone around me. I have deep psychological scars that may never be healed. TLDR. I thought I was loved and accepted until I had my own family, but I struggle constantly. My grandmother passed and her best friend for 27 years took us in. It took me about a couple months before I really got comfortable and started seeing them as family, because even though I knew of them, I didn't actually know them. I have a complicated situation where my old ex-stepdad was the one who adopted me after my mother decided she was going to run off to Montana. Since I lived with him as a preschooler when him and my mom were married, I considered him my father. So the opposite to the ups question was what happened. I had to understand that he wasn't my father. My biological father was a rich kiddish adult who I have met 3 times before he died. It took me 8 years to think of the man who adopted me to not be my biological father, but he is still my father nonetheless. As Yondu once said, he may be your father but he ain't your daddy. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.